civil media. I will try to somehow present what I was working on myself and as part of the dedicated team of Civil, a team which I really hope that every country would have and would lead the country, but not everyone can afford that luxury. I will just go in a summarized manner, indicating several points for which hopefully we will be able to debate upon and discuss throughout the year, all that in order to improve the democratic environment in Macedonia, to improve the situation of this country, in which we are able to see that many things are still the same. But first of all, to start by indicating the congratulations for those who were in the front rows in the process and those who helped the society, at least the progressive part of the society, which joined a strong historical process, a process in which the Macedonian and Greek PMs were at the front, and by which a very complicated and complex and absurd conflict between the two countries was overcome, thus deserving to be nominated for the Nobel Prize of Peace. Unlike some other Nobel Prize winners in the past, I believe that these two persons, if they win this prize, it would be well deserved. But to go back to our homes, there are few reasons to celebrate at home and very few reasons to congratulate for congratulations. Nevertheless, there was an interesting new way of electing the State Anti-Corruption Commission. We have come to certain modalities that were also envisaged in the law on prevention of corruption and conflict of interest, which envisage different commissions, but I will stop here with the compliments, because I still believe that the law on prevention of corruption has serious shortcomings. The election process of the Commission is new, interesting, and promises some sort of a new way of electing the members. However, the manipulators, because they are very crafty and skilled, were able to also enter this process as well. It is left to us to see in the next few weeks if they've managed to do so. Nevertheless, I would like to wish the Commission and the General Secretariat of this Commission many success in the future period. And I'm aware that they have a work cut out for them. They have so much work, something that they cannot imagine even in their worst dreams. I support the idea that in the fight against corruption we need to include as much entities as possible, as much as individuals as possible, groups, organizations, and so on and so forth. And of course, I will agree with the statement of Professor Xhabir at the conference, Corruption-Free Society Conference, because the most responsible entities are the institutions. So we expect from the institutions to deal with the corruption in a different manner than it was in the past, and of course that means that our institutions are very corrupted, and they are not imaginary creatures. They consist of people, a lot of corrupted individuals behaving in a corrupted manner in the institutions and entities in the country. Nevertheless, I would like to also note that in Macedonia, with the arrival of the new government, the concept was promoted, a single society for all concept, which is a new concept for the Balkans that could take Macedonia to the top in the region and even beyond, and convert it into a leader that might offer a contemporary, efficient model of a society and how society should and is able to function. However, unfortunately, the capacities of those who are to implement these concepts, as we were able to previously hear, that the citizens should be part of such concept as well. There was also a good example from the previous speaker, Aliti, and there was also a few good examples from our colleague Dehran and previously. At the moment we have a concept, single society for all ethnic communities, or even better, we have a single concept for a single society for all ethnic political party groups who, of course, profit on their nationalist perspectives, because they want both money and power. And it is a situation in which it is difficult to accept the inertness of the institutions, in which they just promote and declare the concept and go back to their old practices. And finally, the concept single society for all, we were able to see it, how it functions in the days when we had the revolution, colorful revolution, and previously on the events such as protests, stop for police brutality, and many other protests that were organized and held, and all other forms of expressions of revolt and displeasure against the regime of Gruevski, which was only once named as a fascist one. We cannot accept concepts that take us back to the room in which they are being planned. Nevertheless, there were also some good examples that something can be done, even if the system was such difficult and destroyed as the system of social justices, or the system in which labor is also regulated. And for me, which was very important, we were able to observe that there were serious efforts taken for deinstitutionalization in specific institutions in which the country allegedly looks after persons with special needs, with disabilities, and so on and so forth. We were able to see some good steps and measures taken in that direction. So we were able to see that it is possible for such things to happen. And all of us in civil were reminded of something that we 20 years ago promoted in the year 2000 in our efforts towards towards working in this with the institution and with the proteges being accommodated and living in the special institution in Demirkapia. So these are more or less good and positive examples for improvement of the international position, good examples for overcoming of disputes, and good examples of the fact that we could create an institution such as the Corruption Commission is good examples in the practice in the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy. We can also add a few more such examples. We can also see on local level that there are some good examples realized by some of the mayors, but all of that kind of reminds us that all good examples show that things could have been done and are not being done. So in that respect, I believe that nationalism is really rising and is being used in the most inhumane way as tool for power and money, as tools to acquiring a better position in the negotiations with those being in charge of the government, both in local and central level, and nothing else. Those who promote nationalism, hate, gas chambers are not patriots. No, they're not. We know, we have all the arguments to establish that those are only people who want more power and more money. The corruption in the Republic of North Macedonia is deeply rooted in the society, and it is very difficult for us to deal with this issue, especially due to the fact that it is rather obvious that those who have the power, who are the government, are not decisive enough to overcome that system that was established in the 1990s. It continued in the 2000 and onwards, and there is no determination to eliminate such a corrupted system from the face of the earth, but only cosmetic changes are being made. And this is the harsh reality that gives us room to doubt that all these adverse trends and processes being perceived in the society, that these are either intentionally tolerated or even generated in the centers of power, such as nationalism, corruption, and political corruption, bribery, buying of votes, and so on and so forth, and many, many more other issues and problems. But most of all, these are situations that enable the rule of a system in which people die slowly or fast, but they die as a result of the poor system managed by people who are not competent or who are corrupted. By this I refer to the health, in which we daily have cases of child deaths. We have an education in which we generate people, young people, who will either leave the country very soon if they are more capable, or as I recently heard from a discussion that, for example, there will be no one to bury us in the future at a given point of time, or are completely illiterate and are subjected to manipulations and propaganda of those who just aspire towards much more power and money. Justice is something that we searched for for months. We have colored Skopje 2014, which is only cleaned a bit with some cosmetic measures undertaken, including the fence at the government building, and we were able to see many different types and forms of amnesty, something which was very unpleasant for all of us in the past period. And of course, I would also want to say something that with different people with whom I have debated in the past, I am able to feel now, fortunately, that we have some that something is bringing us closer. And I had discussions with Krzalovsky as well from the center, who told me that in his opinion 50 or 60, 70,000 administrative workers should be laid off and dismissed. Yes, this is something that I have written in my article a few days ago, and and I believe that the administration is really a huge and serious problem of the country, and if someone wants to show decisiveness, it should cut it into half. So 50, 60,000 people should leave our back because they are too much for us to bear with. They need to leave, and the government should be creative and allocate funds for social programs, for their additional qualification, for subsidizing of their new businesses, retire some of them, and etc., etc. So this could be even a bigger problem than everything else that I have mentioned, because if if we relax the country in such a manner, there will be lack of political armies and forces who will be forced to vote for a certain political party. And the corruption and injustice and all problems of state begins and ends with the election processes. And we have such problems a lot. For 2019, I expect that perhaps there will be another election process, because if the presidential election process fails, we will face and another one after 6 months, and it will be a period in which the political leaders a little bit hiding behind the front and the curtain and disguising it with the success in terms of NATO and negotiations with EU, and they will not resist the challenge to make another election circus, and which would result into us having double elections by the end of the year, unless there is some change in the trends of which all of us have discussed today. In addition, for this year, unfortunately, I do not expect any improvement of the corruptive behavior and scandals that we are unfortunately witnessing on a daily basis, and I do not expect that the concept single society for all will live further, but it will be a single society for all ethnic communities, for all political parties, and so on and so forth. I do not expect that the commencement of the construction of the new contemporary clinic center will mean the improvement of the health care situation in the country, and I do not expect that someone will sit down and revise those stupid textbooks from which our children are forced to study on a daily basis. I expect a strong core of civil activists, fighters and promoters of human rights and freedoms who will continue to be strong and loud, and who will ask for responsibility and discipline from the political elites, and not only people who only perceive their political benefit, power and money in each one of us. Thank you very much.
Civil Media